So we'll move on to Jenny Marcroft from New Zealand First. Jenny's got a very experienced background in broadcasting. She had over 30 years in the industry, including working for Independent Radio News and TV3. She was a Member of Parliament in the New Zealand First caucus from 2017 to 2020, and she's New Zealand First spokesperson on ACC, Arts, Culture and Heritage, Broadcasting, obviously, Communication, IT, Conservation, Environment, Health and Human Rights. She also served on the Parliamentary Health and Environment Select Committee. She's recently worked for a primary health organisation, also returned to the MediaWorks newsroom and also worked for the Auckland Mayor's office. So she was very, very busy in between stints in politics. So please give Jenny a very, very warm welcome.
Oh, good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for coming out on this coolish evening. It's wonderful to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation. Thank you, Peter and Miles. You know, it's been 3 years since I've been in Parliament, and in that time, when I left Parliament, one of the reasons I left New Zealand First was because I wanted to tap back into the media. And so I was able to, after a period of time, to go back and work in MediaWorks' new newsroom that they set up, the Today FM News. And it was a little snapshot of the state of news. And it really had declined in the period of time I'd been away when I'd been working in Parliament. It was also part of the reason why I left working in the media and went off and sought a political career, because I felt really strongly that the decline in our media, the decline in trust in our media, particularly in our news media, was really going to become fundamental in the decline of our democracy. So it was something I took passionately to Parliament. And it's something I'd also like to continue to do if I'm able to be returned to Parliament at this election with New Zealand First. I'd like to acknowledge Willie and the work that you have been doing in the public media space. Some of the things you've been doing aligns actually with New Zealand First policy. You may be interested to know that. I believe that he's actually done a good job, pretty good job, and it was just a real shame. He had 3 weeks to go. He could have got that merger through, but the rug was pulled out from underneath him. However, that's yesterday's story. Today's story is, what are we going to do? What are we going to do to ensure that our democracy remains robust and we have a flourishing media to enable, we have that pillar to enable democracy to stand? Because as that pillar of the Fourth Estate crumbles, so will our democracy, and that's something that should be a concern for everybody. We know that recent technological and cultural changes have disrupted our traditional media business. The business model we know is crumbling. There's multiple reasons for that, not just the fact that there's got these global giants sucking out the advertising revenue that they've been doing for a number of years, and it's leaving those media industries at a point where they can't fund their newsrooms. You know, they have had to put younger journalists into their newsrooms because they're cheaper. The experience has predominantly left those newsrooms. And also too, with the declining trust of the public in our media, that's really another big issue of concern. So there's a few reasons I believe that our media is in a state that it really is something that the next government must take a good look at. So it's that declining revenue, that reduction of investment in journalism, and there are a couple of ways that New Zealand First would like to tackle that. So, for example, we've got a workforce development policy in media. We would like, if we're in that position after the 14th of October, we would like to have a collaboration with newsrooms to have a 50-50 funding system for a 2-year internship for journalism students and media students coming out of journo schools, so that they can have that time, not just being interns and cadets, but actually have that range of students spread around the country. So we have a regional spread of those students going out, because we know it takes longer than 1 year to train up a newly trained journalist to actually be effective and functioning inside a newsroom. So giving 2 years of that 50-50 collaboration with the news entity will enable them to get greater value out of their new interns. So alongside that, thank you very much, we also want to continue supporting other workforce development training programs like the Local Democracy Reporting and Te Rito to ensure that we have that continuing emerging pipeline of media talent. But something else I think we also need to do is our journalism training schools, they need to ensure through their 5-year strategic plan actually to show how they're giving life to providing diverse talent pipelines for the media sector. Now I think that's really important because currently what we're seeing, and I'll put my hand up, my daughter's one of them, she's just done her 3-year degree in communications. You know, she's a young, middle-class, lovely blonde girl. Everyone in her class looked exactly like her. We need more diverse students coming through so that they then represent the voice of our people as well. So I think that's something the training institutions actually need to do in their strategic plan. Something else I think that's overdue, and I know the Minister's probably actually started work on this. The Broadcasting Act 1989 needs complete overhaul. Something that New Zealand First would be really interested in doing is actually legislate for a new Public Media Act. And what that means is bringing the Broadcasting Act along with the Radio Communications Act and the Māori Television Service Act in under the one umbrella. However, the thing to note there most importantly is that the specific language component on the Māori Television Act must be maintained. Okay, something else that is really important, and this is something that Mark Jennings may be interested in with Newsroom, is that New Zealand First would be very keen to examine tax deductions for domestic news subscription, press patron subscriptions, and large corporate sponsorships of news outlets. We think that's one way that we can help support the industry to help themselves. We know that the Public Interest Journalism Fund became weaponised, $55 million that Minister Jackson put into that. And although I know that he was trying to help support journalism, the industry did not sell it very well and it became weaponised. We stopped it when New Zealand First was in government with Labour because the minister at the time wanted it to go out 8 weeks before the election, and we said that will be used as a bribe for the media. That's how it will go. So we said, no, you can't have that. So there are other ways that we need to support them. New Zealand First also is very concerned about the global techs, and we very much would like to look at Minister Jackson's legislation around ensuring that we return that current power imbalance that we've got between the publishers and the platforms. So the digital bargaining bill at the moment, we'd certainly like to look at that, and where we can, perhaps even strengthen it. You can clap now, Minister. So, if there is a national government, if New Zealand First is there, we would certainly like to look at that piece of legislation. Something else that's, I think, really important, that hasn't really been touched on too much this evening, is that regionally there is a way, I think, that we can support our local regional newsrooms, whether it's iwi radio, community radio, and I do acknowledge, Minister, that you've put money into Access Radio and plenty of money into iwi radio, but we believe that they are really important community hubs that could be developing not just new talent coming through, but also the critical role that they play, particularly as we have more and more adverse weather. We've seen the role of the Hawke's Bay radio stations in particular. So having this sort of community regional hub of news using community newspaper as well, supporting that. I think that's a great way that we can develop and strengthen our regional newsrooms so that they can also feed back into a larger, more national news as well, but certainly maintaining a regional news focus is very important. Just very briefly, a couple of other things that I'm interested in. I do have a whole suite of policy. I won't read them all out right now, but we are very concerned about media bias. And we think that that is part of the way the Fourth Estate has been corroded, and I think it needs to be addressed. It has a chilling effect, in fact, on free speech. Media bias does shut down debate by making people less likely, less inclined to think for themselves. It's really important that our news stories have balance and are fair and present not just one opinion, but have multiple angles on them so that people can make up their own mind. It's really important that we are not dictating to the public. We need to allow them to make up their own mind. So it's really important that we do that. So New Zealand First has a couple of ideas that we'd like to bring to Parliament if we are returned there on the 14th. Party vote, New Zealand First, just better drop that in. A Royal Commission of Inquiry into media bias and manipulation in New Zealand, we'd like to do that. And also what we'd like to do is we'd like to replace the BSA, the Broadcasting Standards Authority, and establish the role of a media ombudsman. So those are some of our policies which we're just announcing, and thank you very much for your time.